I drove 7 hours without stopping, parked across the street from the campus, and watched my daughter walk past me like I was a stranger. Not a glance, not a pause, nothing. After everything I had done to get her to that day, I stood there holding something that had been in my family for 3 generations, and for the first time in my life, I realized I might not have a place in hers anymore. My name is Walter Bennett. I'm 74 years old, a retired mechanic from Dayton, Ohio, and I am not a man who cries in public. But standing there outside that campus in Columbus, wearing the only suit I still owned, I had to lock my jaw so tight it hurt just to keep myself upright. I had raised my daughter, Emily, mostly alone after her mother passed. I worked double shifts, sold my truck, and cashed out the little pension supplement I swore I would never touch. When Emily got into college, I told her, "You study, I'll handle the rest." And I did. Tuition, books, rent. Emergency money she always promised to pay back once she got settled. I never asked twice when she called. The last 2 years, though, something in her changed. Her calls got shorter. Her texts sounded cold, like they were written with one eye on the clock. Every time I asked if I should come visit, there was some reason not to. Too busy. Too much going on. Finals, internships, her roommate, her boyfriend. There was always something standing between me and my own child. Still, when the graduation invitation came, I stared at it for an hour at my kitchen table. No note inside, no "hope you can make it." Just the card. I told myself that was enough. I wrapped up my father's watch, the one his daddy wore when he came home from the war, and I drove those 7 hours with bad knees and a sore back just to place it in her hand. Then I saw her. She was laughing with a tall young man in a navy suit and a woman I'd never met, dressed like she belonged in a magazine. Emily saw me. I know she did. Her eyes touched mine for half a second, and then she turned her face away so smooth and deliberate, it felt practiced, like she'd done it before. I stood there with that little box in my hand while families gathered, hugged, took pictures, cried happy tears. One mother asked if I was waiting for someone, and I nearly laughed. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. "Please leave. You're making this harder than it already is." I read that message 3 times before it made any sense. My hands started shaking, not from age, but from something colder, harder. I looked back up at her, standing there like she belonged to a different life, and I realized that text wasn't sent in a panic. It was written clean, thought out. I typed back, slow, because my thumbs don't move like they used to. "Emily, I just want to see you. I drove all this way." The 3 little dots showed up, then disappeared. A minute passed, then another message came through. "You shouldn't have come." That one hit deeper than anything she could have said in person. I stood there with people brushing past me, cameras flashing, names being called over loudspeakers, and I felt like I was the only one not supposed to be there. I took a step closer to the campus entrance, thinking maybe she just needed a minute. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe that young man beside her was the reason she was acting strange. I'd never met him. She never told me much about her life anymore, just enough to keep me quiet. As I got closer, I saw her again. This time, she saw me coming. Her whole body stiffened. Not surprised, not confused, just tense, like I had crossed a line she already drew. "Emily," I called out, not loud, just enough for her to hear me. She didn't answer. She leaned toward that man, whispered something, and he turned around to look straight at me. The way he looked at me, it wasn't curiosity. It wasn't even annoyance. It was judgment. Like he already knew who I was, and had already decided what I was worth. I kept walking anyway. I wasn't going to turn around like some stranger she could erase, not after everything. When I got within a few feet, she finally spoke, but not the way I expected. "Why are you here?" she said, her voice low and sharp, like she didn't want anyone else hearing. I stared at her, trying to find the girl I raised somewhere in her face. "It's your graduation," I said. I'm your father." Her jaw tightened, and she glanced at the people around us before stepping closer to me. "You need to leave," she said under her breath. "Right now." I felt something inside me crack just a little. "I brought you something," I said, holding up the small box. She didn't even look at it. Instead, she said something that made the air around me feel heavy. "If you stay," she whispered, "you're going to ruin everything." And before I could ask what she meant, that woman standing beside her stepped forward and said, loud enough for others to hear, "Emily, is this him?" The way she said it, like I wasn't even standing there, like I was some problem that needed to be handled. It made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't felt in years. Emily didn't answer right away. She just closed her eyes for a second, like she was bracing herself, then nodded once. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's him." The woman looked me up and down, slow and deliberate. Her lips pressed into a thin line, like she'd just confirmed something unpleasant. "Well," she said, not even trying to lower her voice, "this is exactly what I was afraid of." I felt heat rise in my face. People nearby started glancing over. A few of them slowed down, pretending not to listen while clearly listening to every word. "I don't understand what's going on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emily, who is this?" "That's none of your concern," the woman cut in before Emily could speak. "You need to leave. You've done enough." Those words, they didn't just sting. They landed like something final, like a verdict I didn't even know I was on trial for. "Done enough?" I repeated. "I paid for her schooling. I worked myself into the ground so she could stand here today. What exactly do you think I've done?" Emily flinched at that, just slightly, but she didn't defend me. She didn't even look at me. Instead, that young man stepped forward, placing himself just a little closer to her, like he was shielding her from me. "I think you should go, sir," he said, calm but firm. "This isn't the place." "Sir," not Mr. Bennett, not even her father. Just sir, like I was some stranger causing a scene. I looked at Emily, waiting for her to say something. Anything. "Tell me to leave," I said quietly. "Look me in the eye and say it." For a second, I thought she might not. Her hands were trembling at her sides. I noticed that. I noticed everything about her, the way only a father does. Then she lifted her head and met my eyes. "Please go," she said. No anger, no tears, just cold, like she had already made peace with it. Something inside me dropped. I opened the little box in my hand without thinking. The watch caught the light, same as it had the day my father gave it to me. "I came to give you this," I said. "It belongs to you now." She didn't reach for it. "I don't want it," she said. That hurt more than anything else so far. Before I could even close the box, the woman stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough that only I could hear her. "You really don't know, do you?" she said. I stared at her, confused. "Know what?" She gave a small, humorless smile. "Then this is worse than I thought." And then she said something under her breath, something that made my stomach drop. "She never told you what you did to her." For a moment, I couldn't hear anything else. Not the crowd, not the announcements, not even my own breathing. Just that sentence, sitting there between us like something rotten finally dragged into the light. "What are you talking about?" I said, but my voice came out thinner than I expected. Emily turned away, covering her face with one hand. Not crying, just hiding. That was worse. The young man stepped in closer again. "That's enough," he said, sharper this time. "You've said your piece. You need to leave her alone." "I didn't say anything," I shot back, the confusion starting to twist into something heavier. "I don't even know what she's accusing me of." "She doesn't owe you an explanation," the woman said. "Not after everything." I looked at Emily again. "What did I do?" I asked. "Emily, please, just tell me." She shook her head, slow, like even hearing the question hurt her. "I can't do this here," she said. "Then where?" I asked. "Because I've been calling you for months and you barely answer. You send me a card with no note, and now you want me to disappear like I'm some kind of—" "Stop!" she snapped, louder than before. A few people nearby turned fully toward us now. Her voice cracked just a little on that word, but she steadied herself fast. "You don't get to stand here and act like you don't know," she said, her eyes finally locking onto mine again. "You don't get to pretend." My stomach dropped again, harder this time. "I'm not pretending," I said. "I swear to you, I don't know what this is about." There was a long pause, the kind that stretches and makes everything around it feel tight. Then she let out a breath and looked past me, like she couldn't stand to look at my face anymore. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "You really don't." The woman beside her placed a hand on her shoulder, almost proud, like Emily had just confirmed something important. "We should go," she said. This is exactly why we didn't want him here. Didn't want him here. Not couldn't. Didn't want. I felt something shift in my chest then. Not anger. Not yet. Something heavier. Something that made me feel old in a way I never had before. "I deserve to know what I'm being accused of," I said, louder now, not caring who heard. "You don't get to erase me without telling me why." That's when the young man stepped right up in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "You need to lower your voice," he said. "You're making a scene." "A scene," I said. "She just told me I ruined her life and I don't even know how." Emily flinched again at that, and for a second, I saw something crack in her expression. Fear, maybe, or guilt. But it vanished just as fast. Then she said something that didn't just hurt. It confused me in a way I couldn't shake. "You should have stayed away after Chicago," she said. "Chicago!" I hadn't been to Chicago in over 20 years. And suddenly, none of this made any sense at all. Chicago. That word stayed in my head like a bad echo. I hadn't set foot in that city since Emily was a little girl. Maybe 8, maybe 9. Back when things were still simple. "I don't understand," I said, quieter now, like if I spoke softer it might all make sense. "Emily, I took you to Chicago once, a weekend trip, Navy Pier, that big Ferris wheel. You loved it." Her face changed when I said that. Not soft, not warm. Something else. Something tight and uneasy. "That's not what I'm talking about," she said. "Then what are you talking about?" I asked, my voice starting to shake despite myself. "Because you're accusing me of something I don't remember doing." The woman beside her sighed, like she'd been waiting for this moment. She was too young to process it, she said, looking at me like I was something broken. "But she remembers enough." "Remembers what?" I demanded. Emily swallowed hard. Her hands were clenched now, knuckles pale. "You left me," she said. Those 3 words didn't land the way the others had. Not sharp, not loud, just heavy and confusing. "I never left you," I said immediately. "I raised you. I was there every day after your mother." "In Chicago," she cut in, her voice rising. "At that hotel." And then, something shifted in my memory. Not clear, not clean, just fragments. A hotel room, a phone ringing, me pacing, a man knocking on the door. My brother's voice somewhere in the background. Stress, pressure, something urgent I had to handle. "I had to step out," I said slowly. "There was a situation with your uncle. I told you to stay in the room. I was gone maybe an hour." Emily shook her head, tears finally spilling over, but she didn't wipe them. "It wasn't an hour," she said. "It was the whole night." That didn't sound right. It couldn't be. "That's not possible," I said. "I would never—" "You did," she snapped. "I woke up and you were gone." The room was dark and I didn't know where I was. I didn't even know what city we were in. "I thought you left me there." My chest tightened. "I came back," I said, weaker now. "I must have come back." "You did," she said, her voice breaking now. "The next morning, like nothing happened. The pieces started lining up in a way I didn't like. That night, the phone calls, the drinking after, the way everything blurred together. "I didn't know you woke up," I said, barely hearing myself. "That doesn't change it," she said. And then the woman stepped in again, finishing what Emily couldn't. She spent years thinking her own father could just disappear and leave her behind, she said coldly. That's what you did. I stood there, the little box still in my hand, feeling something inside me collapse under the weight of a memory I had never fully faced. And the worst part wasn't what I remembered. It was what I didn't. I stood there longer than I should have, holding that watch like it still meant something. Emily wouldn't look at me anymore. She turned her back, leaned into that young man, and let him guide her away like I was already gone. I didn't know, I said, but the words felt useless the second they left my mouth. She didn't turn around. The woman gave me one last look, not angry, just certain. That's the problem, she said again, quieter this time, before following them into the crowd. And just like that, they were gone. All the noise came rushing back in, people cheering, names being called, cameras clicking, life moving forward like nothing had just broken apart in the middle of it. I looked down at the watch in my hand. My father wore it every day of his life. He used to say, "A man shows up. That's what matters." I believed that. I lived by it. But standing there, I started to wonder if showing up late, even once, could erase everything that came after. I don't remember that night the way she does. I remember stress. I remember drinking more than I should have. I remember thinking she was asleep, safe, tucked into that bed. I don't remember her waking up alone, but she does. And that's the part that stays. I walked back to my car slowly, like my legs didn't belong to me anymore. Sat there for a long time with the engine off, hands resting on the wheel, just staring through the windshield at nothing. 7 hours to get there, 7 hours back, and not a single word left to fix any of it. I set the watch on the passenger seat, thought about leaving it there, just walking away from everything. My phone buzzed once more. I picked it up, expecting nothing. It was a message from Emily. For a second, I thought, maybe this was it. Maybe something had shifted. I opened it, and my hands went still. I read it once, then again, and I realized I had been wrong about more than just that night in Chicago. I looked up through the windshield, my chest tightening all over again, and whispered to myself, "No, that's not possible." If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come.